SBC Media.
Welcome to iGaming Daily, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe. Supported by SBC Summit Latino America, bringing together the leadership teams and product specialists from retail and online operators in Latin American markets.
Discover the potential of Latin America's booming iGaming and sports betting markets at SBC Summit Latin America, the premier industry event in the region. Join SBC at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Miami from October 31st to November the 2nd. Register now at sbcevents.com. As Brazil finds itself on the verge of introducing a regulatory framework that will see the country take control of the offshore sports betting industry, progress in recent weeks has witnessed slow steps moving forward. However, that narrative changed this week as Senator Romario, the person in charge of the sports betting bill at the Commission of Sports, published his report. So, has he voted to approve the bill, or will this be another step in an attempt to kill the goose that lays the golden egg? This will be the topic of today's iGaming Daily, sponsored by SBC Summit Latin America, as I, Lucia Mourino, am joined by my Noticias colleagues Isadora Marcante and Fernando Noodt to delve more into Romario's report. So, hey guys, how are you doing today?
Hello. Oh, good. How are you, Lou?
Good, always good. What about you, Fern?
Yeah, I'm just excited to be recording the last podcast before SBC Summit Latin America. I mean, I can't believe it's already 1 week away. I mean, I feel like the year just started and all of a sudden we are on October the 25th. So, yeah, it's really crazy.
I feel like the 22 event just happened 10 weeks ago.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, time flies. But time flies, but at the same time, if you think about how much Brazil has progressed in the last few months, like it's day and night. Like at the event last year we were talking about, do you think they're gonna just start working on the regulation soon? And people were like, I don't know, like at some point they were like, we have to think about the elections, we have to think what's gonna happen. And if Lula wins, like, will he be in favor of this? And well, here we are. We have a regulation, but it's not yet working there because there's a lot of things to fix beforehand. So to start with the first question, on the 18th, Romario published his report about the sports betting bill, and he voted to approve it and accept the 3 amendments. Can you explain what those 3 amendments are about?
Yes, sure. So, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, like 49 amendments were made to the bill of sports betting, and Romario voted in favor of approving the bill itself, but he accepted only 3 amendments. 2 of them are about the permission that the Minister of Finance has to give authorization for operators, but for a period of time of 5 years, not 3 years, like the bill wanted to be. So this is a change that they want to make. And the other amendment foresees that the advertisings and propaganda must be direct to adults, not children and not teenagers. So these are the only 3 ones that they accept. The other ones, they reject them all.
Is there any explanation as to why they don't want to change the number of years that you just mentioned?
Actually, they want, like the bill set 3 years for the operators to have like a valid license. And then the Commission of Sports is proposing to have 5 years instead of 3. So they want to change that. They said that the 3 years is just like, it's nothing. And they need more time, like operators need more time to have the authorization like valid for a longer period. So they want to, like they said in the document, they want to respect the references of the provisional measure done by the Minister of Finance, and they don't want to go against them. So that's why they are keeping 5 years.
Yeah, I understand companies wanting 5 years instead of 3, because we're talking about a market that hasn't even started legally, and like you need time to establish your operations and follow all the guidelines that the government is giving you in order to do things right. And sometimes just starting in a new market takes you over a year. So let's say that you're on track of getting positive results by the end of the second year. And then the next year, you just have to think about renewing your license. Like 3 years just go just as fast as getting that license.
Especially due to the price that the people have to pay to get the license. Like, it's not like we're not talking about a low amount. It's a lot of money, and small operators will feel much more than the biggest ones and the offshore companies. So 5 years is definitely much better than 3.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, taxes in Brazil, we've been through this multiple times at iGaming Daily. They're super high. They're one of the highest from the last few years that I can think of. And if they're going to be operating there, they're going to need more benefits. It's not just paying off those taxes and just getting a license for 3 years. That's just not beneficial. But apart from the amendments that, like, Romario himself also suggested another 3. That's regarding the price of licensing, distribution of taxes, and betting markets. What exactly is he suggesting?
Well, the first amendment suggested by Romario is that price of the authorization should be 30 million, fixed amount. And the commercial brands that the operator can add is only 2. And so they can explore these 2 brands. That's the maximum amount of brands that they can have alongside this authorization. The second one refers to the percentage of the tax. So they want to change a bit, like slightly a bit, like the percentage. So they said that 60.68% to sports and 0.05% will go to the Brazilian Committee of Master Sport. So 4.30% to tourism. And that includes Embratur, that is the Brazilian agency of the tourism promotion, and 0.5% to the Ministry of Health, and 0.15% to entities, the society entities. That would go to some like charity federations and to the Red Cross. And the third amendment is that they want to limit the betting markets. So to avoid and to prevent match fixing from happening in football, they want to prohibit bettings in isolated events like corners, sides, and yellow and red cards. That's the 3 that Romario suggested in his report.
I think there are actually a pretty important thing about this whole scenario with the regulation is to set up the proper scheme to get the most operators to be able to comply with the regulation, like when discussing price of licensing and discussing the taxation for betting companies. It is very important to not to set the bar too high, like puts very high taxes, because smaller operators probably won't be able to comply with those. So some might be acquired by the larger ones. You know, larger operators will probably say, okay, you're taxing us like, the taxing is too high, but we are okay with it. We are big operators. We can handle it. Maybe you can change it in the future, whatever. But the smaller operators won't be able to do that. So some may be acquired by the larger companies, but some, and I'm talking about a few of them, right? Because most we already know that our small operators probably won't do this, but some will actually not comply with the regulation, will continue to operate outside the law. So the authorities will have to stay vigilant about this once the new legislation is enforced, in order to prevent unlawful competition, because you will have these operators paying a lot of taxes, and then some operators that will operate outside of the law and not pay taxes at all. So that happens everywhere, and it will happen in Brazil if the taxation scenario is not properly discussed. And I think that's why the IBJR, the Brazilian Institute for Responsible Gambling, is advocating for it, is not set up way too high taxes, because if you don't, you might benefit. If you don't set up high taxes and lower them a little bit, you might benefit from more operators in the regulated market, avoid them to go illegal. And also, you won't have to be like chasing everyone and spending resources in chasing those illegal operators and trying to shut them down. Sorry. So I think it's a very delicate part of the regulation that they really need to address, and they really need to bring the operators in and discuss it with them together in order to set up a proper regulatory framework.
I remember a few months ago, I think, Isa interviewed Mansour, and he said that it's better to do it right from the beginning instead of adjusting the regulation. So I'm wondering what happened in the middle, because if you say that, you're pretty much focused on not having a gray/black market operating at the same time of the legal one. So even with all these match-fixing cases in Brazil that have actually just put the attention on other Latin American markets, because it's been so bad that everyone is looking into that. Like, how do you go from saying that you want to focus on creating a bad environment for these operators to thrive to then put in all these high taxes? I don't understand that.
Exactly, especially because like the operators wouldn't pay only 18% of the GR. We are like IBJR said, we are forgetting all the other taxes that a business person has to pay when they have a business in Brazil. So you have PIS, COFINS, and the INSS. You have a lot of taxes that you have to pay apart from the 18% of the DGR. So, and something that IBJR said, and I think it's really well said, that this will not only benefit the black market, but will have an impact on the sports sector, because 69% of the clubs have sponsorships from operators. And what happens if operators cannot operate like in a healthy way here in Brazil? What will happen to the clubs and to the sports? So, the taxes are very high. The amount that you have to pay to get the license is also high, but it's understandable considering other things. But still, it's a lot of things that will be impacted from these taxes, these high taxes.
Well, one of the ways that sports betting can benefit from all of this is through advertising. And then the sports clubs benefit from sports betting because they get a share of that. And some people from the parliament want to prohibit famous personalities from promoting sports betting. The Commission of Sports will vote on the matter soon. However, one of the amendments rejected by Romario foresees prohibiting communication, advertising, and marketing actions promoting sports betting in any type of media. Do we think that this can influence the votes in the Senate?
It could actually influence, but I don't know if they're going to compare these two things, like famous personality promoting sports betting and communication in any media type to promote sports betting. I think they will see these two things as different things. Although Romario is a former player, they might not want to prohibit communication in any media type, but they might set rules for famous personalities when promoting sports betting. I think setting rules is important, especially with the increase of illegal online casinos in Brazil and fraudulent casinos using influencers, digital influencers, and famous personalities to promote their brands. But prohibiting famous people of doing that in Instagram especially, or in TikTok or on Facebook, but like Instagram is the most effective media for promoting things here in Brazil. So I think that would be like a not nice shot from them if they prohibit, but it might influence. Yes, they might okay, we're not gonna prohibit communication and betting promotions in any media type, but famous people cannot do that. But then how you're going to promote your brand? How you're going to promote if people buy things from people they like, from people they trust, and they are famous? So I don't know. I don't see how this could be done if they vote for prohibiting famous people from promoting sports betting.
Well, Brazil definitely has a golden opportunity here, as all the other countries that have not approved their own regulation so far, because we are seeing in Colombia that they are actually enforcing new advertising regulations. We actually discussed this topic on episode 112, which is titled Coljuegos Embraces Central Role, etc., etc. You can go check it out after finishing this episode. But yeah, they actually have they have this very mature market by now. But when they first approved the regulation and they set up the whole scenario for what the iGaming and sports betting industry would be, they didn't actually discuss advertising regulations in a very complex way, right? So now they have to go back and discuss this again. So yeah, these countries that don't have their own regulation yet, they do have the opportunity to sit down with the operators, sit down with the betting companies, and say, okay, let's see what has worked in other countries, what hasn't worked in other countries, what problems do mature markets have with advertising, and they set up, turn on the engine, and go forward with it, and do the right thing with the regulation, not being prohibitive like most governments tend to approach regulation at first. Like we see this a lot everywhere, and especially in Latin America, like Chile has this push against betting sponsorships right now. So they have the opportunity in Brazil, and of course in Chile as well, to go back from what they just did. What they just did, yes, and actually sit down with the operators and set up the proper regulatory framework to get an industry that can thrive, that can benefit from advertising, from responsible advertising. We all know that the IBJR is already pushing like a self-regulatory code to actually promote their activities in a responsible way. And if you can achieve that, you can get a healthy industry that can generate revenue that will eventually go to the state coffers, right? You will pay big tax money, and you will fund health, education, and other areas that you already mentioned before.
Yes, I would like just give my opinion that I believe that prohibiting or allowing propaganda or advertisements would not like solve the problem. Like if you prohibit propaganda, people will still do it because you cannot control them all. And if you allow propaganda, still like will have like wrong advertisings and people doing it wrong. But when you regulate it, when you set rules, you allow it, and you set rules and you regulate it, you can actually be in charge of, and actually you can check and punish people who do it wrong. So yes, like prohibiting, I don't see prohibiting as even to avoid match fixing issues, and then you prohibit isolated bets. This will not change the problem. They will still have match fixing issues, and the black market will still be there. People will still bet on offshore companies and bet in black markets. So it will not solve the problem. Prohibiting is never the solution. Regulating is.
Well, to wrap things up, do you think that we will see a big difference from implementing these advertising rules from the beginning, like Brazil would do, to implementing things now, as Colombia has done, considering that Colombia is the most established industry in Latin America? Like, do you think that at a consumer level, this will have a big impact?
I think it will definitely have an impact, because if you actually set up the rules beforehand and actually limit advertising in a proper way in the market, you will avoid like the most aggressive practices some operators may have at first in some markets. Like we are seeing this in some countries where operators maybe have campaigns that may not be the best to promote like responsible gambling and are a bit aggressive towards the consumer. So if you actually regulate it first, you will avoid those things that may lead to some problems related to compulsive behavior, right? So if you actually set up the proper framework, like I was saying before, you will be able to set up an environment that will be beneficial both for the operators, the companies that will have the tools to properly advertise their operations, their business, and generate revenue from that, but also protecting the consumers at a level that they are not being targeted way too aggressively.
Thank you all for listening, and hopefully I'll get to see most of our listeners next week in Miami for SBC Summit Latin America. In the meantime, if you want to know more about Brazil, you can always visit sbcnoticias.com/br and sbcnoticias.com if you want to read in Spanish.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of iGaming Daily, brought to you in conjunction with SBC Summit Latino America, being held at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Miami on the 31st of October to the 2nd of November. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network. Happy reading.